Good afternoon. I'm Sharon Jaffe Dan, editor of Home and Design magazine. One thing I love about my job is how much I learn about our region, its history, culture, and architecture with every article that I write or edit. Last year, while we were working on a story on the Belgian embassy residence, I discovered an architect named Julian Abel, the first African American to earn a degree in architecture at the University of Pennsylvania. Abel designed this Beaux-Arts beauty for a well-to-do couple on Foxhall Road in 1930. But he could not take credit for it. His boss actually signed the drawings. Later, Abel would design Philadelphia's Free Library of Rocky fame and its Museum of Art. He also designed more than 30 classical buildings on the campus of Duke University, an institution that the architect could not attend, and some say even visit at the time because of his race. Abel's contribution to Duke were not formally acknowledged until decades after his death in 1950. While it's atrocious that Abel didn't live to see recognition for his brilliant work, he's a rare example of an African American who had the opportunity to study architecture in his day. The fact is, few Americans of color saw themselves or people who look like them entering fields like design, architecture, or art. Fast forward to the 21st century, and we find that Americans of color are still underrepresented in these fields. According to the 2020 census, only 4% of interior designers are African American and 3% are Hispanic. Black designers account for less than 2% of overall membership in the American Society of Interior Designers and the American Institute of Architects. Today, we're going to address many of these issues surrounding inequality and diversity in design with 5 local pros who have lived them firsthand. These individuals recently founded Design Collective DC, an organization of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, designers that promotes inclusion and fosters racial visibility in our community. While they certainly didn't sign up to be activists when they entered the design profession, our panelists have told me that they nevertheless felt compelled to do something that would move the needle to combat stereotypes and microaggressions and disrupt the status quo. It is my pleasure to introduce them today. Charles Almonte of Charles Almonte Interiors, trained in architecture and historic preservation. Charles enhances clients' built spaces according to their lifestyle and taste, mixing modern and classic elements for timeless appeal. Iantha Carley Interiors. Iantha has been energizing homes with her signature passion for color and pattern since she started her business in 2005. She aims to elevate clients' cherished possessions in an environment that's invigorating yet personal and familiar. Dennese Guadeloupe Rojas of Interiors by Design, LLC. With more than 20 years of experience in the field, Dennese curates the best products and furnishings according to clients' budgets and creates designs that are timeless, family-friendly, and easy to maintain. Quintece Hill-Mattauszek, Studio Q Designs. Quintece takes a detailed approach to design, guiding clients toward making the best decisions to suit their home and lifestyle. Her goal is to create complete compositions that are unique, bold, and functional. And Shawna Underwood Interior Design. Recognized for her clean and refined approach, Shawna orchestrates functional designs that result in one-of-a-kind interiors. A LEED accredited professional, she also advocates the use of sustainable design innovations. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
I know you're all super busy and we so appreciate your time. I think all designers right now are trying to play catch up after COVID and everyone wants to do something on their homes. Have you been able to enjoy the summer a bit? How have you balanced work and summer so far?
Balance is a good word. I'm definitely outdoors doing a lot of outdoor spaces. So I'm definitely outdoors a lot, enjoying it that way. But we take time, now that we have the longer days, we take time with the family afterwards and stuff. So it's been a good summer now that things are opening back up.
That's good. Yes, it's really nice to be able to gather in person. I know, Charles, you just went to Philly for the weekend.
Exactly. Yeah, I was in Philadelphia for the weekend with some friends, and it's a lovely city. I always like that city. We stayed in Rittenhouse Square, and lovely time. I walked around and went. You mentioned the Philadelphia Art Museum, which is one of my favorite art museums, just because of the drama of that step. With Rocky always playing in the background, you go up there. So so it was a wonderful weekend for me.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, Charles, I think we'll start our discussion off with you. I know you trained in architecture as well. What was it like to enter a field that has such a lack of diversity, and knowing that it would be a struggle, or did you know that it would be a struggle?
So it's very interesting because my background, I'm an immigrant. So I had my architecture degree. I was born and raised in the Philippines, and it's a very homogeneous society there. So racism isn't really an issue there so much. So I only learned about it when I got to Chicago. Even then, I wasn't really aware of that because I was focused on getting my master's. That was the original plan, was for me to go to graduate school and just go back and teach. But I had an offer to do an internship in Chicago. I was very, very intimidated. I mean, I walked into the classroom the first day. I was the different one, physically and so it's very intimidating. It was the same with when I got this internship. A professor of mine said, does anybody know how to do CAD drawings? His son had an architecture firm in Chicago, a very small studio. But it was very intimidating. But, I just went in there, did my best. And, part of my culture is for good or bad, you're instructed to walk in and do your job. Don't do anything. Don't just do your job. So fortunately, that studio was very, very nurturing, very helpful, and very accepting. The same thing that happened here when I moved to DC, because I had the job offer after the internship. The firm that I worked for is a smaller studio. They were very accepting as well. Again, I was the only Asian person there, but it wasn't an issue. I do wonder though, if I had walked into a bigger firm, if me being Asian would have been more political in that sense. But because I went into a smaller studio, it was a little bit more nurturing, so to speak. So Shawna, but it was very intimidating.
Shawna, what was your experience entering the field, and did you have similar experience to Charles?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is always a challenge when you're the only one or the minority in those different types of settings, especially in the design industry. As a person of color, it's nothing new to us. I mean, most, being the minority in this country, most settings, you're going to be the one or, not one of many. And so I think you kind of adjust and you kind of adapt to it. It's something that we're used to. I mean, I grew up in a town where, that we were the minority. So, it was overwhelmingly white. I went to design school where I was one of a few in our class. So I think, like Charles said, I think you just stay focused on what your goals and your aspirations are. You don't let that become, a hindrance to do your job and to do the best that you can do for yourself and for your clients. And you just, I love design, so I wasn't going to let that be a challenge for me or a barrier to keep me from getting to my ultimate goal. So.
Right. Denise, was it an uphill struggle for you, and what ultimately inspired you to launch Design Collective DC?
I was raised in the islands, so I never, like Charles, I didn't have that issue. It was coming to America is where I really had that experience more so. And I didn't feed into it a lot. I just kind of kept my eyes focused on what I was doing and just kept moving on. As far as in the years that I've been doing it, I've always circled myself with designers that are of many cultural aspects as far as that's concerned. Mm-hmm. The Design Collective was started primarily from the perspective of Iantha and I were nominated for top 20 designers from the Black Interior Designer Network. We connected, Iantha and I have known each other for many years. And when we were nominated, Kimberly Ward at the time wanted to have an outreach here in our area, which we did. And it was held at the time at the Robert Allen Showroom. And we had lots of people that attended, and the energy was high to have something like that for support for designers of color. And from there, at the time, we did not know that Kimberly was not doing well health-wise. And we wanted to keep the momentum going. And she and I decided to reach out to others, which is part of the group, and see what we can do for the support part for everyone. Because in the years I've been doing this, I've always found that when designers stick together and support each other, you're able to kind of collaborate and help each other. I've always said designers are not competitors, because the person that would hire you based on your footprint and what you bring to the table from the creative aspect and how your rhythm vibe together. So that's an important aspect as well in the design industry. And I want more designers that are coming into the mix to understand that that's an important part of what we do on the creative side of things. So that's kind of how the whole thing came about. And from there, it's important to support each other. I mean, in business, it's very helpful. You can call someone and say, hey, I have a question about something. Have you done this before? And that's also a very, very important part of what we try to do for each other.
Iantha, why did you think launching DC Design Collective was necessary, and how would you describe its other missions and goals that Dennese may have not touched upon, aside from the sense of community and supporting one another?
Yeah, coming from the perspective of, we had belonged to BIDN, we realized that it was, that's a national organization, and we realized that it was important to have an organization that was local, that dealt with local designers, local issues, to support each other, even for things as simple as, do you know a good carpenter, or, where can I go to get my client's furniture reupholstered? And we also wanted to create a mentorship to younger designers or younger people who were interested in this field. So they would know that there's people that look like them in this industry. And I think all of us here have had that issue when we first started out, that, who could I turn to, who could identify with the struggles I may have in this industry. And there were very few. And not many locally. So I think that was one of the catalysts of, creating this organization.
Quintece, how do you see the organization fostering diversity and also helping to sort of help deal with those struggles or overcome them?
Right. I mean, there's a world of opportunity that we could involved in and really kind of broaden our spectrum as to the inclusion portion of design, because I think that's a big area that we're missing. In terms of inclusion, we say it a lot, but what does that necessarily mean? It also means belonging. And it's one thing to get your degrees and all of that information and have the tools at your disposal, but no way to use them because you don't have that sense of belonging, that I belong in this industry and I have something to contribute to it. So I think that part of what we're trying to do is is not just be included as Black designers or BIPOC designers or Asian designers, but be included as designers and feel like they belong in this industry for our expertise, for our points of view, for our creative inputs. So that's definitely one area of it, is making sure the inclusion part doesn't just get, called upon once a month or, once a year or something. It's more about everybody being involved in it and not making it so much of a racial issue. Right. So that's definitely one area in which we are hoping to kind of hold the industry accountable and for some more inclusion and diversity.
Mm-hmm. I know part of your mission is mentoring young designers who are thinking about entering the field. Shawna, did you have a mentor, and why is mentoring underrepresented students so vital today?
I am a big advocate of mentorship. So that was definitely something that I really wanted to make sure we included that into our mission for DCDC. Me personally have not had a design mentor, but I've had mentors throughout my, my life and my previous careers. Mm-hmm. So I think I've definitely benefited from a lot of the mentorship that I have had, the support, the encouragement, exposing me to different things. Mm-hmm. I think mentorship is very important. I think in my design career, I've had mentors who have been managers, not necessarily mentors, but they have been managers who have also taken me under their wing and kind of showed me and exposed me to different things in design that I think have, added to my success, right now. Mm-hmm. But I think it is important that we, have mentorship for people of color in the design industry, because there is not a lot of us represented right now. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that will improve and grow. But I think, coming into this industry where you are a minority, having someone that has maybe the same experience, the same background or similar backgrounds is also helpful to kind of maneuver through the industry.
Right, exactly. Dennese, what would you tell a young designer of color entering the field? What's an important message, or what do you know now that you wish you had known then about how to succeed in the field?
Oh, gee, when you fall down, get back up and go after it. That's for sure. I've never stopped going after my dream and my passion. I love what I do, and I tell my clients on a continuous basis. Mm-hmm. When you love what you do, it makes a world of difference from so many different aspects of your life. It's fulfilling from a soulful perspective. Mm-hmm. It is, and just continuing to drive yourself forward in what you believe and believing in yourself. Right. That's an important part of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I think more than anything else, if you're doing something that you don't like going to every day, you're not on the right track for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else advice to potential people in the field? Quintece?
Absolutely. Internship, because it helps kind of guide you as to figuring out which road you want to take. There's so many avenues in design, and it's helpful when you can get out there and get some real life experience to say, oh yeah, no, I don't want to do this, or oh yeah, this is for me. So it's helpful to do those internships, while you're in school under somebody else's dime too, because you're going to make mistakes as well. And it's helpful to make those mistakes under somebody who knows how to correct them, so that you learn and you can go into, the next position with a better understanding of what it is that you want to do and the direction you want to take.
Right. I think everybody just has to continue to learn, continue to learn as much as you can. And in this, in the field of design, it's, as Quintece said, it's so broad. Mm-hmm. I went into architecture, but I do interior design. We do kitchens, bathrooms. I'm helping a client do graphics, for signage and buildings. They're not big projects, but it's still within that realm. I have that background in historic preservation. And even then in historic preservation, you have the design aspect, you have the advocacy aspect, you have the lobbying aspect of things. So I think, it's so broad out there,
Right.
And I think also don't be afraid to ask questions. I had the most wonderful experience actually last night. I'm on vacation right now in Miami, and I had a late night phone call from a high school student in North Carolina who was who's thinking about going into the interior design industry. And she found my name through my undergraduate college, North Carolina Central. And she Googled my name and found my phone number. And she reached out to me last night to ask me about my experience, if I like interior design, attending college and taking design courses and all that. So I thought that was so fascinating that a high school student took the courage to like reach out to someone in the industry to ask those questions. So definitely ask questions and don't be afraid.
Right. I don't think that honestly, it's not even just students. I mean, the whole mentorship is not about students. I mean, we also need that guidance as well. Like, for example, if you're a residential designer, you're trying to move into the commercial realm or hospitality or healthcare, you may not know which way to go, and somebody else within our group might have that experience, and you can call on them to say, hey, is this normal? How do I do this, etc. I mean, same situation with what Shawna said. This young gentleman saved my number from like 8 years ago that I randomly met in the design center. And he says, I'm finally ready to start my business. How do I do it? And I was like, you saved my number this long? I mean, it's needed. It's just another example of showing why this is so needed, especially, regionally, so that someone from North Carolina doesn't have to go back to, the college and to look at it. There's
exactly
for that type of help.
And I think that's great, because these stories are what makes our group important, because they might not be comfortable reaching out to someone who they're not familiar with, or they don't feel like there's a connection with, whether it's through race or age or whatever, but the fact that we're out here makes them realize, like, you know what, I can contact her, I can call Shawna, I can call Quintece to ask these questions, because I feel a little bit of a connection with them, so I think it's very important.
Exactly. In your group's spirit of inclusivity, members of the LGBTQ community are also welcome. Charles, what drove that initiative?
I think it's just a natural progression. Again, we're the word inclusive is very important for us. The word diversity is also in our mission. So I think we try to be more accepting of people, of different race, of different color, of different orientation. So I think it's just a natural progression. And it just so happened the big social media push that we did was in June, which is Pride Month. So, it just reflects that there are hundreds of colors in the rainbow there. So, so it's just, a natural progression for us. So.
That's wonderful. And what has the reception been like since you launched about a year ago?
It's been wonderful, I think. We've had a lot of inquiries. We've had a lot of membership inquiries. We're starting to sort of go through them right now to vet them and all that stuff. But I think we have in our emails at least, maybe 5-6 inquiries a day that comes in. So it's just a matter of us trying to sort of move things forward and move things sort of like formally.
Right. One thing we've touched upon in our conversation is kind of the fact that DC is such a multicultural city. What advantages do you see being in DC over, and how people here kind of do see your work and your creative efforts over ethnicity and race? Iantha?
Yeah, well, I've always said the issue has never been with prospective clients. I mean, clients are going to hire you based on your aesthetic, based on whether they feel that, this would be a good, working relationship. So being in DC, I think it has been a pretty unique situation where you do have people who are much more progressive, much more open-minded, and see beyond, like, oh, she's a Black designer. Does she only design for Black people? No, we design for all people, for humans. So, that has been, I think, something when I've talked to designers from other major cities, they don't have that same type of situation going on, and it's really unfortunate. But you know, it makes me really proud to be from this area and knowing that there are just so many more open-minded people.
Right. How do you think this differs from friends in other markets, Dennese? What kind of experiences have some of your colleagues in other cities had?
They've had, I mean, it's been open as well, but it all depends on, you know, where they are in the country as far as that is concerned. Mm-hmm. I haven't had any negative reactions. I know that, you know, it's getting to know each other. I think we shared before. For me, I think one of my experiences going to market was a little different, you know, years ago, where, you know, I was in a situation where I was the only minority in the space. So when you saw someone else of color, it was a novel idea as far as things are concerned. But for the most part, I think it's a support that is really needed, and there's so much more out there, and more people are coming out with what they're doing and what their capabilities are. So, and it's being embraced. Mm-hmm. So that's good.
Right. Any other perspectives from designers in other markets?
I mean, we hear a lot about it. I mean, it's still very pocketed in other parts of the country. Like Iantha said, we have a unique situation here in DC because it's a true melting pot, and that it creates a lot of opportunity for you to, you know, advance. But, you know, there still are the social circles and things that, you know, are affected by sort of this community. But there are other areas in the country that I know that if I moved to, I'd have a harder time. That it's just that simple. It's simple of an answer, I should say. It's just very difficult to break into this industry to begin with. But then we add other layers to that others may not have to deal with. You know, it's pretty complex, and there are definitely still plenty of places in the U.S. that are like this, and those individuals who are struggling in those areas, you know, have a whole different situation and set of issues they have to go through. So we do have a very unique and fortunate situation here in DC.
Right. I think over the past year, since the national reckoning that has taken place in kind of every aspect of our society, since the brutal murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others, have fostered some changes, and including in the interior design industry. Quintece, what positive changes have you seen taking place that face issues of race?
Well, we've seen a lot of positive change. You know, things that are great to start with. We have to continue the conversation and build upon it, but it's amazing because even 2-3 years ago, you'd open a magazine and you maybe see one BIPOC designer throughout the whole magazine. And now you can open it up and see so many different points of views and so many different races and designers from all parts of the country, not just all located in New York or located in Atlanta. Like the spectrum's grown a lot more, and people seem to be opening their eyes to understanding that there has been all of these disparities, because it had been such a status quo for it just to be like, oh, I know this person, let me just go ahead and put them in, instead of really seeing what the issues are or some of the things that were lacking within their own organizations. So I've seen a lot of positive changes in the media, which has been great. We've seen BIPOC professionals in various stages of the field. So we're seeing more editors, and we're seeing more project managers. We're seeing more reps. We're seeing a lot more changes that have happened over the last year than we have, I feel like, we ever have. And I think that that's a great positive note.
Right. I mean, that said, I think we, from speaking to you all and other designers, I know there are still, there still is a lack of diversity that prevails in places. As I learn, not just the media, but also vendors, manufacturers, associations, universities. It's kind of, at pretty much every level of the industry. So I thought maybe we could break those down we also, by the way, to our viewers, will have questions at the end. So feel free to write questions into the Zoom interface as we chat. Dennese, what would you like to see come about with manufacturers, and how can they embrace equality in a better way?
Well, I think one of the things, as I shared a little earlier, was in the years that I've gone to Furniture Market, it was very sparse. You did not see any designers of color roaming the streets. Mm-hmm. And I had one experience of many where I went into a showroom where they normally serve lunch, and the people behind the counters were the people that were serving the meals. And I was really very uncomfortable mm-hmm. being in that space, because I really didn't feel the need for them to serve me from that perspective. And in today's environment, it's hard. It's primarily a boys' club, and they're now breaking it down where they're letting women into it, but it's hard for the Caucasian female to even break into that market, much less the rep of color to get in. So I'd like to see more from that perspective. So it's always exciting if you do happen to run across one, especially at market, which is a real rarity. I haven't really seen that at all, and I'd like to see more of that.
Mm-hmm. What about the products themselves? If product lines are kind of embracing an ethnicity but not really naming it, do you see a problem with that? Sort of like a cultural appropriation with products?
I'm not really seeing anything like that. I haven't yet. I know that they're trying to do a little bit more as far as that's concerned, but I really haven't seen a lot of it. I mean, now at market, I think there's one gentleman that I don't remember his name, and he's doing upholstery, but he's usually in the suites at Market Square. And then you may see ethnic pieces that you can integrate into spaces, but all of that is primarily a lot at the Market Square at market, but nothing at the big showrooms. It's all, independent vendors that are coming in and trying to break in a bigger way as far as that part of things are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Iantha, what would you like to see change with the way vendors and reps work?
Well, I definitely would like to see a more diverse workforce as far as reps are concerned. As Dennese mentioned, most of them, tend to be white males. They're usually older. I'm not hating on white men and older white men, but it would be, you just kind of want somebody a little hipper, That wouldn't be bad. I mean, I'm old. I think I'm kind of hip.
You are, Iantha, you are.
But yeah, and for vendors, I mean, for vendors or reps, especially when you walk into a showroom, to me, it's just important to make the person feel welcome when they enter. And there's always stories. I mean, I used to work at the design center. So, I used to hear stories all the time of a designer of color coming in and not really being treated the way a white designer would have been treated. We're really busting on High Point, but they have a really bad reputation with that. I mean, every market, someone comes back with some story about how they were made to wait because they didn't have an appointment, but a white designer comes in with no appointment and sees someone right away. I mean, it's like basic stuff. Why are you still doing this? This is like 2021.
Right. Minimum order issues, right?
Yeah. Pardon me?
Yeah.
Issues with having to have a minimum order amount.
Oh, that's another thing. I mean, and that's not just for BIPOC designers. That's for any designer starting out.
Right.
To me, you want to get your product out there. I mean, if I were a manufacturer, I would want to get my product out there. And so, I'm going to help whoever wants to buy my product. I'm going to find a way, even if it's as simple as giving connecting them with someone who has an established account, and they can order through them if you're going to stand by this hard, fast rule that you have to have minimums.
Yeah. And also, if I can jump in, if you don't mind, to touch on Denise and what Iantha are saying, I think a manufacturer also need to be a little bit more inclusive of their licensing with BIPOC designers. I mean, it's very rare to see design products and new lines coming out from various cultures, various backgrounds, various ethnicities. It's starting to get, it's starting to get a teeny bit better, but it's still, it's leaps and bounds away from where it should be. And it's not always, oh, let me just find someone who is the most Afrocentric to bring out a line. It doesn't mean that we all have to be put into one box just because, so, a lot of us don't design that way. Some of us have a more traditional aesthetic, and we can create lines too. So breaking down some of those barriers to offer more product line deals, to be more open to collaborations, to understanding that, you are missing a huge market of people to sell to by not including everybody in the conversation.
Right. That's very
right. And if there's any manufacturers out there, they need to contact Quintece, because she is a phenomenal furniture designer. So
yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Deserves a line.
Well, clearly I'm a little passionate about this subject.
I won't tell them you grow your own trees now.
She's lying. She's totally lying, but we have that running joke. But yeah, it's really important. A lot of us, and not even just furniture, just paint colors. I can't tell you how many white designers have just I want to paint color. So it's like it's wonderful to see the industry embrace beyond just the media that we've seen happening.
Exactly. Shawna, what about associations? I know increasing diversity within associations is one step, but what other initiatives would you like to see, or how they can try to affect change and bring about more diversity in the fields of design?
Sure. I think it all goes down to marketing, making sure that you're marketing to, BIPOC designers, making sure that you're welcoming new members into your associations from other backgrounds, maybe having some BIPOC designers in, leadership roles in your association. So there's someone there that they can, that represents a different perspective. Definitely looking at, HBCUs and their universities that have interior design programs, making sure that information is marketed to those students too, so they know that those associations are available to them too. So education, word of mouth, getting your information out there so that everyone knows it feels welcome to join those associations. Maybe even encouraging study groups, for NCIDQ and all that type of stuff, encouraging study groups so that we can have more licensed interior designers in the industry and all that. So definitely marketing and making sure you're exposing that to all people.
Right. Well, one bright spot that took place recently, back in May, was the Kaleidoscope Project. And this was a show house exclusively featuring the work of designers of color. 23 pros from around the country transformed rooms in the Cornell Inn in Lenox, Massachusetts in the Berkshires. And this event garnered national attention. More than 30 sponsors supported the project, and proceeds from ticket sales funded scholarships for designers of color. And Iantha, Denise, and Shawna represented DC in this event. And we covered their gorgeous spaces in our July-August issue. So we're gonna take a quick peek at their projects. Here they are in front of the Lenox, or in front of the inn. And the cool thing about this show house is, unlike others that are dismantled after the event, the inn kept these rooms intact. So you can stay in any of these rooms when you visit this inn in the Berkshires, which is pretty cool. This is Iantha's creation, the Bennett, and you'll see her signature plaid and checks. It also included a lovely sitting room. Denise called her suite Doreen after her late mother. It's a calming and soothing retreat with a sophisticated living room and dining area. And Shawna selected Schumacher floral wallpaper in this lovely room, and it was called the Hudson. And complementary wallpaper and Ansax tile are in this beautiful bathroom. So I just wanted to give everybody a peek at that.
Yay, they did great. They not only represented, they killed it. It was beautiful.
That's great.
And we're still friends.
What inspired you to participate in the Kaleidoscope Project?
Go ahead, Denise.
Was it inspiration or was it?
Well, I got invited at first to be a part of it, and I called Iantha cautiously and asked and shared my spiel with her. And she's like, oh, let me think about it, because there were vendors that were contributing free stuff to us. So it sort of made it easier because we wouldn't have to try to turn the world upside down to find things at this time, but we did. We did. We had to turn the world upside down anyway. And then after that, they were still looking for people. They only had one more spot. And so Iantha and I reached out to Shawna and to see what her interest was, because she had never done a show house before.
And what was it like? Oh, go ahead.
And so we, I remember bugging her a few times. She said, I don't know. And then finally she made the phone call and she was on board. So it was the three of us supporting each other here, which was really, really nice. Mm-hmm. And from there, we kind of rode through the whole wave of the emotion and trying to get it all done. And it was a little different, of course, because we were doing it from here up there, not knowing what to expect. Right. So Iantha and Shawna both went to the Berkshires first, and they got a lay of the land. And then I went the second phase, just as everything was finishing up, to give them a headlight on what was going on from our perspective as what to expect. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it worked out really nicely because we had each other's back 100%. Right. So it was nice.
That's great. Shawna, what was the experience like for you, and what was it like working with a whole team of BIPOC designers in this high profile event?
Oh, it was great. It was like Denise said, it was my first show house. So I was kind of going in there, I guess blind eye. I didn't know what to expect. So, but it was great. I mean, because we were in DC and the show house was in Lenox, Massachusetts, and it was during a pandemic. A lot of the stuff was done virtually. Mm-hmm. Given direction via FaceTime, texts, all that type of stuff. So that was interesting and challenging at times. Mm-hmm. But I think the energy and the support of all the BIPOC designers and the support of industry partners, mm-hmm. and all the vendors who supported the project was great. I think it was a great experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. So it was really nice.
That's great. Iantha, how do you think it helped raise awareness of the breadth of design in the BIPOC community?
Yeah, I mean, it just did raise the awareness. I mean, it kind of goes to the whole point of view that there's power in numbers. I mean, when we do something individually and say, as an individual, we're published, that's wonderful, but it doesn't have the same impact as 23 designers in one place. Mm-hmm. And so, one of the most common comments that I was told from people who visited is like, I had no idea. I had no idea. And I mean, as a joke, it was like, and there was no kunta cloth in sight. I mean, that was like the whole thing. They had this vision of what they thought, particularly Black designers, or we had some Asian designers, but, it's like we respected our cultures, but, it wasn't overt either. So I think that's what people were kind of blown away from about, you know, like, oh.
They can create.
Yeah.
Charles, why do you think events like this are so important and to raise the bar?
I think it's just important for the visibility. As I always say, you know, visibility is important. You know, just seeing us out there, whether in print, in, you know, social media, you know, all of us hope that we inspire that someone who feels that, you know what, I'm a little intimidated because I don't feel like I can break into that kind of field, you know, because I look different, you know. And that goes back to being gay as well, you know. It's very intimidating, you know, to jump into a place or a field where you feel like you're only one, you know, and there's nobody to support you. But if people see us out there and we get a little bit more visibility, hopefully it'll feel them a little bit more confident, give them a little bit more confidence to participate, you know, and that we are out here. You know, there is a support group to talk about social issues like this, you know, to talk about design issues, you know, so just a safe space for them.
What was your takeaway, Quintece? And also in the light of the fact that I think every shelter magazine covered the Kaleidoscope Project in some way, both on a regional and national level, and I'm sure I probably got a lot of TV exposure too. Why is that important to you, and what kind of takeaway message do you have?
Absolutely. I think that I would say one of the things that I was really excited about was that the location of it too, being that it wasn't in Atlanta. It wasn't in, you know, areas where you would predominantly see a lot of African Americans or a lot of Asian designers or a lot of other cultures. It was someplace that was, you know, penetrative. You know, you could really see that there was a need for somebody to be able to experience something different. So I think that was amazing for them to be thinking about that and taking consideration of the location to expose people to other things. And get the reaction that Iantha's talking about of, I didn't know. Well, now you know. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the coverage of Kaleidoscope was amazing and it's not just, you know, a helpful tool when it's covered with these 3 wonderful designers were covered. It is a collective greatness for all of us, for people to see that there are so many professional BIPOC designers out there that probably fit your style, that probably can, you know, accomplish this type of look or space that you're looking for. You know, a lot of people have always come to me when they hire me and they are looking for a designer of color to work with. They're like, I can't find you guys. And then, now these events are really important because people are out there actually trying to find designers of different backgrounds and ethnicities to work with, because there might be some sort of relationship there that they want to uphold, and these kind of events help people locate a lot of these designers, these professionals.
We are ready to take some questions. Let's see what we have. The statistic for Hispanic and mixed race designers is shockingly low. How do you feel about that statistic, and when will you be including the Hispanic community in your approach to becoming even more diverse?
I think it's sad that it's low, you know. I mean, especially with the Latinx community, it's such a big community, you know. So you would think, you know, we hope that there are folks out there in the Latinx community that would participate, you know, and join us, you know. I've sat into a couple of classes as panelists in certain, in Marymount, with Jessica Bonas, who's a friend of mine. You know, I do notice that there are Latinx students in the interior design field that, you know, we want to see them also become part of the field, you know, become part of practice. So hopefully it changes, and hopefully our group would give them this platform and this space that they can join, and we would, because part of our group as well as networking, you know, so hopefully that would help them as well. So yeah.
Yeah, the Latin community is very welcome to join and we encourage you to join our group because it's important that we hear from all points of views. And, you know, we have our own personal experiences. We can't know what yours are until you talk to us, till you communicate and let us help you.
Another excellent question. How do you keep the magazines and brands on board? What do we do to make sure that the interest and perspectives of designers of color continues once the events that happened last year are no longer being talked about? And this comes to us from Don Ricardo Massenberg Design in Durham, North Carolina.
Great question.
Don Ricardo.
I think that's one of my fears with this whole situation right now, that, you know, it just becomes a blip, you know, it becomes a trend. So hopefully it doesn't happen to be that way. But, you know, having forums like this, having us more visible, having the Kaleidoscope Project, you know, hopefully that kind of, you know, as Quintece said earlier, like, you know, now you can see more editors of color, you know, in magazines and stuff like that. Hopefully that kind of pushes the issue to be a little bit more a topic, you know, of a conversation, and be continuous, you know, to make changes. You know, it's a painful past, but, you know, I think we need to learn from that. You know, I think, you know, right now the hottest topic is critical race theory. You know, people are saying, you know, why are you teaching my kids that? Well, you got to learn that. You know, it's part of this country's history. So I think, you know, hopefully with that sort of continuous conversation, you know, this sort of group doesn't just become a blip, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to interject by also saying that a lot has changed, and I think a lot is going to continue to change. I have hope and faith that it will. I mean, there's so many organizations now across the country that have kind of paid attention to what's going on. I mean, even from El Decor making changes in, you know, their editor for Assad to be there and, you know, take notice of various things that are going on out there. Even Don Ricardo, I mean, back in the day when I started, there was no way that you would even see anyone like him on a panel for anything at Market. So everybody's taking note on things and seeing what's out there and trying to level up as far as we must include as far as things are concerned. And they're stopping and smelling the roses to see what we're doing and getting us also included in the big picture. So, you know, and trying to bring the Hispanic design community into the mix, that's the next level of raising everyone up to another playing field with us all.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's going to take, go ahead, Shawna.
I was going to say, I think also continue that conversation, continue that, you know, supporting BIPOC designers, but also welcoming their perspective on design. I don't want to see where we kind of put us all in one box because we're a certain ethnicity or race. You know, we have broad design perspectives and just having on an editorial level, kind of showcasing that we're not just one type of designer that does one type of design, like we do all types of design. So I think that needs to be showcased on the editorial level where we're not just being pigeonholed into one type of design because we're a person of color.
Yeah. One other thing I think that we don't touch on is the relationships. We have to have more opportunities for, you know, magazines to get to know all of us too. I mean, Sharon, all of us know you. So you knew to reach out to us and say, hey, do you have this? Or do you guys want to do this? You know, there's this relationship building that sometimes doesn't happen because you don't know who to talk to. So accessibility is an issue when it comes to the editorial field. And that also happens through photography too, you know, knowing the right photographer that can also help you get into magazines. And so it also has to do a lot with building those relationships and connections that can help, you know, keep the magazines on board as to what's happening and be inclusive of other designers' points of view.
Yeah, I totally agree with Quintece because, you know, I mean, that's how our field is. You know, it's all about networking, about getting published and all that stuff. And as you establish your relationships with, you know, with magazines, as Don Ricardo was mentioning, you know, as you increase your visibility and nurture that relationship, you know, with editors, with photographers and stylists and all that stuff, I think that just gives you a little bit more of a chance, you know, to be featured. But I think that's also, it's a two-way street as well. You know, the editors and the stylists and the photographers should be open to working with and establishing a relationship with BIPOC designers as well. And Home and Design has done that, you know. So you know, I think as Quintece said, I agree completely with that building of relationships. So.
Thank you. We have one more question. This is from Katie Pope from Dennese at Sea. Given the current lack of show house opportunities in DC, do you see a chance to do something like the Kaleidoscope Project in this area? I would love that.
Oh, I would love it
too.
Let's volunteer Quintece.
I'm kidding. I mean, that would be great. It is a lot of work. I mean, let's not sugarcoat that one. Both Iantha and I have had the opportunity to serve on the committees for the DC Design House. It's not easy. A lot of work. So, but it would be wonderful. It would be wonderful to do something like that.
That's great. I think that wraps up our questions. I want to thank our amazing panelists for their time and insights and courage and compassion that you brought to the table today. We really appreciate it. These can be difficult conversations, but only through empathy and dialogue can we truly see and understand one another. So and thanks also to our guests who tuned in today. If you'd like more information on Design Collective DC, I'm going to share that in a moment. But here's to a safe and healthy and happy summer to everyone. And thanks again, you all. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it.